Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. We're doing a special edition of the Spotlight on the Community Show here at Susan G. Komen San Diego's Impact Luncheon. Our Spotlight on the Community Show is in its 20th year with the nation's longest-running community podcast, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 60 years of doing great things for folks in our San Diego community, whether it is food insecurity, it is financial literacy, it is the homeless. They are just with everybody shoulder to shoulder. Honored to have in our remote studio today Lauren Murphy. She's the executive committee of Susan G. Komen San Diego, a breast cancer survivor for 20 years, and is the VP of Biz Dev for Prime Therapeutics. How you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for joining us. And you're with your colleague, Abby Kim, an oncology pharmacist and director of clinical strategy for Prime Therapeutics. How you doing, Abby?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll start with you on this, Lauren, as we talked to some of your colleagues about this earlier. Marilee Neal, 12-year cancer survivor. You're 20 in this. Talk about the journey.
Yeah, my journey started obviously 20 years ago. I was up in the Bay Area, and I had just had my second child about a year prior and was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. Went through quite a journey of trying to make sorts of the different options that were available to me, and really benefited from a great center of excellence up in the Bay Area, which was UCSF, where my oncology and surgery team really helped guide my path. I also really benefited from meeting a woman who helped really spearhead a lot of the decisions that I had to make. She became kind of like my guardian angel through the journey. So through that whole process, I was able to, I think, make, for me, what was a great decision to go down a little bit of an alternative path where I didn't do traditional chemo. Instead, I did more radical surgery and participated in a clinical trial and went through hormonal treatment for about 10 years. And here I am today, feeling healthy and great.
Now, did you have a family at the time?
Yes, married with 2 young children that were under the age of 2.
Right, okay, so add that to the mix on top of that. And parents, were they in the Bay Area as well?
Parents were both on the East Coast at the time, yeah.
On the East Coast on that. So as I imagine anyone, as we talked to Marilee about that, when you get that first news, it hits you between the eyes, right? Mm-hmm. But did you feel pretty confident early that I'm gonna come through with this?
Yeah, I mean, I had spent my entire career like in healthcare, so I really felt like I understood the way to navigate the path and really to find the folks that were the experts in the field. So I never really doubted that I could find the right path. I mean, I was definitely scared to make the wrong decision because making that first decision is pretty important. But I surrounded myself with good people and experts and good doctors, and obviously the care that I had in the Bay Area I think was excellent. So with that, I never really stopped and gave it too much thought that I was going to have any issues, more just embracing it and moving forward strongly.
Right. So when did you join the Komen board?
I just joined a year ago. Mostly I just wanted to give back and, share my experiences and my journey with others. So just about a year ago, I stepped into this role as a committee member. Yeah,
it's a cool group. I was honored to be on the board for 6 years a while ago. And so great organization. Nice. You can't stop supporting it for 75 different reasons on this. So Abby, talk about your journey as an oncology pharmacist.
Yeah, so I went to pharmacy school and I never thought about oncology. I didn't think I would end up there, and I always tell people it kind of found me. When I was in residency, I did a rotation in pediatric oncology, actually, and I knew that is exactly what I was going to do moving forward. And so have had the fortunate opportunity to work in both pediatric and adult oncology, and then spent part of my career working as an oncology pharmacist in a breast cancer clinic where I had the opportunity to see patients day to day and develop relationships and impact their care, both from, the treatments landscape, but also just as a human, and understanding kind of one of the things Lauren talked about is, going through that experience and needing a support system. And you can find that in many different ways, but, being an oncology pharmacist and really connecting with patients and getting to impact their outcomes has just, been one of the great honors of my career.
Yeah. And how much has changed in the field that you're in? Probably can write 14,000 War and Peace books on that, I imagine, correct?
I mean, it's crazy, right? Like, even just in the amount of time I was in the clinic, it was insane to keep up with drug approval after drug approval. And I think, I talked earlier in the year with one of our key opinion leaders and physicians on another panel, and we talked about how lucky are we in the breast cancer space to now have so many different options. And really, I think what Lauren talked about, like clinical trials and research and funding, have really made that happen. And it's not just the funding, it's the scientists, it's the patients, it's everyone who really comes together that has given us this plethora of treatments that have really changed lives. And, what you were talking about earlier, patients living longer. Now we know that a patient can be diagnosed and really, get through treatment and live a life after that. So
yeah, and I think obviously in the field of breast cancer research, as it is with other pretty incredible diseases, research is not inexpensive, but it is absolutely so invaluable. You've seen it because of all the different options that are there now, and the reason why is because people and organizations like Komen are raising millions of dollars, for this. It touches home with me. My father was a medical doctor and taught medicine at UCLA, and you just know, and that, especially at that school, how much money is poured into research and what they're changing and all that. And I think it just can't be lost on someone. And what I say about that is when people think, well, what can my $20 do to support? It can do a lot, because it's all about volume in that area. Talk a little bit about Prime Therapeutics.
Yeah, so Prime Therapeutics is a company that's really, changing medical and pharmacy benefit management, and really is a great organization to work for because it really thinks about patients and members. And so in my role, what I get to do is I get to lead oncology specialty solutions. And so I get to do innovation. I get to look at the research. I get to look at the clinical trials. I get to look at the pipeline of drugs, and then build products and systems that we can take to the market to really impact patients' lives. And so things like care navigation and helping patients with things like food insecurity and housing and all these different social determinants of health just beyond the treatment that they're going through. We know that really well, but we know treatment isn't successful with all of those other layers for patients to really live a full life. And so our organization really has a strong focus on that. And I think that's something Lauren and I get to really live and work every single day.
Yeah, we're chatting with Abby Kim. She's an oncology pharmacist and director of clinical strategy at Prime Therapeutics, joined by her colleague Lauren Murphy, the vice president of business development for Prime Therapeutics, a 20-year breast cancer survivor, and also on the executive committee of Susan G. Komen San Diego. And on this, Lauren, we just talked about some of the things that Abby is doing, focusing on the innovation aspect of it. Your goal is, I'm sure, to raise money and do other types of things in that area. Do you see that people are getting more engaged, especially in the world that you live in, and are more willing to go ahead and open their pocketbooks up?
Yeah, I think especially when people have a family member or friend or somebody in their close circle of friends who've been touched by cancer, I think it really hits home, and it's real to everybody in that capacity. And I almost feel like really to some degree that probably impacts every single person that we probably know in our circle of friends and family. Right. So for that reason, I do think people are willing to if not open their pocketbook, at least to try to get involved, right? Whether it's volunteer or be a part of helping chip in to support organizations that they feel they have an affinity with. So I do feel that, at least from my circle of friends and family, just a lot of them have been impacted. So there is that willingness.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes 2 seconds to listen to both you, Lauren, and Abby, to know that the thing that gravitates you is the human interaction. And that sounds like, well, of course they should be doing that stuff. Well, not everyone does. And having known that, being in a doctor's family, is that, listen, this person has just been thrown a biggest curveball in the history of humankind in this aspect of it. And so a lot of that goes into the psychology, I imagine, of how you deal with patients and all that business. And then when you combine, and maybe you can answer this question, Abby, and jump in too, Lauren, on this, unless you live in a different solar system, we have never been under more anxiety in this world, okay, for 75,000 different reasons in this aspect of it, whether you're young or you're old and all that business. That can't help toward the focus on curing the breast cancer, can it?
No, yeah, I think, in the last portion you talked about like having more information at your fingertips and the anxiety that can provoke, and just the anxiety of the world, certainly. And so I think that's where, communities like Susan G. Komen, communities like your breast cancer clinic, all the different types of communities just, need to wrap their arms around these types of patients. And, I didn't mention this has been a career passion for me, right? Like caring for breast cancer patients, but that became incredibly personal. As just this last November, my sister-in-law was diagnosed with early onset breast cancer. And it gives you pause, right? Like I've always thought about it from the care, like health professional landscape. And, it's almost like, even there's human aspects, there's, that's kind of at an arm's reach, and then it happens right next to you. And I think, you were alluding to this earlier, and Lauren would probably agree, is that like, a breast cancer diagnosis is for a woman or a man, and that impacts them in one way, but it's certainly a family diagnosis, right? And so how does a family wrap their arms around that person and each other and find community resources to help with those anxieties of the world as well?
Well, we talk about this quite a bit on our Spotlight show. We've been doing this for 20 years now. We're the nation's longest running community podcast. And no matter whether you're talking about breast cancer, Huntington's disease, or, mental health, or pick a topic, doesn't make a difference. It's just not the person you're treating. Just like to your point, Abby and Lauren, it's the whole orbit around them. Now, whether it's their immediate family or it's their friends, their aunts, their uncles, their pets, I don't know. They probably can read some of this stuff too, of course, in this area. And I think which is so critical about this, it can't be, chattered enough about, is you're, treating everybody who's in that orbit. Talk about that, Lauren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's impacting the patient or the one that's diagnosed impacts everybody around them. Just on a personal level, when I was diagnosed, I had the two young ones at home. So obviously, they were probably too young to understand at the time. But
right.
My husband was impacted, my friends, my family. I met all sorts of folks in my neighborhood who I had never met before, who popped up and wanted to be part of helping support the journey. So, it really does become a journey for all the people that are in your circle, and it grows because I've made actually even friends through the process. People I didn't even know I became friends with who are other breast cancer survivors, the nurses that you meet in the centers when you're getting your care, and so forth. So it does become in a strange way, it becomes like a family that you turn to for support, but also they give you that sense of comfort that you need. And kind of back to what you were saying with the anxiety, I think that the journey, you feel more comfortable when you are part of that process and you have that support circle around you.
Yeah, and of course, in the world that you folks live in with Prime Therapeutics, as you're looking at more innovative ways, to work, with that patient or with the family as well, and caregiving is a whole animal on that. We could have probably a 15-hour show just on that aspect of it, of what you're looking at in this area, and just having a place. And of course, San Diego, as we mentioned before, talking to Leah Brune and Marilee Neal. I mean, this is a poster child place for the great research that's going on, and we're sort of, very fortunate in that way. Where do you see, I'll start with you on this, Abby, and you can add to it, Lauren, Prime Therapeutics, are you guys growing? Are you just, as more research is coming by, geez, we need more folks to be in your field? Talk about that.
Yeah, we are going through some tremendous growth. And I think that's because we're thinking about the healthcare ecosystem in different ways. And I think there's never been more attention on oncology, right? And that has to do because of the great research and drugs that have come to the market. But with that comes a lot of other, dynamics as well. And we know, there is treatment toxicity, but there's also financial toxicity to getting a cancer diagnosis. And so, Lauren and I get to work to help solve some of those problems and find solutions to make care more affordable over time. And so I'd add that, we're growing in those ways, and we are putting so much kind of our work and our dedication into really solving for that oncology and cancer population.
Yeah, again, Drew Schlosberg here. We're doing another special edition of Spotlight on the Community Show. We're here at the Impact Luncheon of Susan G. Komen San Diego in this beautiful Eve building in downtown San Diego. Luncheon will be taking place in a few hours or so, chatting with Lauren Murphy, Executive Committee member for Susan G. Komen San Diego, and a 20-year breast cancer survivor, and the VP of Business Development for Prime Therapeutics, joined by her colleague Abby Kim, Oncology Pharmacist and Director of Clinical Strategy for Prime Therapeutics. So we always love to have the magic wand in our Spotlight show, so to speak. We'll start with you on this, Lauren, and then pivot over to you. If you have the magic wand, okay, obviously we'd have a cure tomorrow, and then that would be it, and we're fine, okay? But let's say that magic wand can't quite do that, but it can do other things. What would you want that magic wand to do?
I think it would be wonderful to obviously find a cure for cancer, right, but to really get to a point where we are so specific with how we're treating cancer patients. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that with some of the precision medicine that even our organization gets involved with. We're not there yet, but I think over time, as some of the drugs that are coming out are much more targeted and are able to really help identify where they're really going to help make the most impact without the toxicity that obviously patients are looking to get away from, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. How about you, Abby?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lauren and I are biased to the treatments, right? And if we could wave a magic wand and have the best treatment, or we could cure cancer with that treatment, I think that's great. That's what we're striving for. But I think also, if I could wave a magic wand, I would have a wish for 100% screening among women who are eligible, because screening is the first preventative measure, one of the first preventative measures for detection. And we know early detection changes lives and cure rate and cure possibility. And so, just getting every woman to have a conversation with her primary care provider and know her risk and know when she needs to be screened, if that's with guidelines or early or later, that's becoming more personalized too. And so getting to that 100% screening rate would be my magic wand at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And absolutely, we all know this, whether it's with breast cancer or prostate cancer or even non-cancers on this, folks. I mean, humans, I think the animal kingdom gets it better than us, but that's another story on this thing here. Come on now. Listen, all you need to do is get treated and tested and all that business, and you're going to be in a much better world on this aspect of it. Lauren, what can we do, and you can add to this, Abby, to support Prime Therapeutics? What can our listeners do?
I think actually just folks that are listening today that are part of the dialogue, that's the first step, really. The awareness, the education, finding just one person that you can impact, I think is really, in my opinion, the key. I know from my own personal journey, having one person help me really was critical for my whole path. So if each of us today can go and just help one individual with, I know today the theme is going to be around patient navigation. Right. If we can help get one person into that patient navigation program, I would say that would be a success.
Very good. Abby, want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would build off of my last is like one thing you can do is just know your risk and
Right.
ask when you need to be screened. So I think that would be, my wish for our listeners.
Well, it would do everyone really good. It would go to the doctors well, it would go to the pharmacist well, and it would make those lives easier. And that's not you trying to make your life easier, but it certainly go a long way on this. So, Lauren Murphy and Abby Kim, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things for folks living in San Diego County. And we are just so thrilled to do a special remote at Susan G. Komen San Diego's Impact Luncheon. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.